Hi, my name is Natalie Adris. I am currently a freshman at the University of Arizona, and I will be talking about why the education system is not a one size fits all. I have both dyslexia and dysgraphia, and I felt like this topic really hit close to me um, because of my parents being educators and because of me going through the education system with learning disabilities. I felt like this was a topic that really needed to be explored because it's not really thought. A lot of times we just take the education system for how it is and don't question it. But I think that talking to a lot of students, there are problems and it does need to be talked about. I think because this topic is so broad and so vast, I had to break it down into a few pieces. One of those being the different types of learning differences, as well as the different types of teaching styles and education systems that could fit the needs of students with these differences, as well as the difference between learning and schooling. Because I feel like there's a very broad difference between these two things, and I think to better understand this topic, we should first explore the difference between schooling and learning. Schooling happens when you are in front of a teacher in a classroom and you are being taught a subject. But learning is very vast. Learning can happen any day, anytime, and anywhere. I think when we first are able to identify the difference between schooling and learning, we kind of start to realize that we should focus more on learning than schooling. We should focus more on a student's ability to apply their knowledge. We should focus more on a student's ability to understand a topic than their ability to do well on a test. And that's where a lot of problems occur. I think when we focus on trying to get a good grade, we focus on trying to pass a test, we're just trying to memorize, and you cannot apply that later in life. And so when education systems start focusing on how to maximize a student's learning, you also increase their test scores as well. So when you're able to separate schooling and learning and you start to go towards learning, you also help their schooling. The types of learning disabilities that I explored were dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, sensory integration disorder, auditory processing disorder, visual processing disorder, and ADHD. So I'm not going to go too much into defining every single one of these disabilities, but as you can see, a lot of these disabilities have different impacts on a student's ability to learn at a certain method. And so I think we can be able to see how not all students with disabilities learn the same way, and how one disability may affect a student in one way as another disability may affect a student in another way. And I think that's really interesting and really something that we should recognize when it comes to learning differences. It's something that cannot just be fixed by a few accommodations, like extended time on tests or extended time on homework. It's something that I feel like for students with these learning differences, that they should be immersed into a type of teaching method that best fits their needs. And this is then when I get into the types of teaching methods. So the three major types of teaching methods and teaching styles that I researched were the traditional education system, self-directed learning, and Waldorf education. And I felt like these were all very, very different. And I think that once we start to realize the differences between them, we can really see how some students may be able to thrive in one and not in another. And that's where we kind of start to realize that every student learns differently. So I'm not going to go too much into depth as to these education systems and their style of teaching and their method that they do it, but I think I more want to focus on the fact that there are differences and that some students may be able to do really well in one and not in the other. And I think that, there's a lot of different learning differences that could thrive on one and not on the other. For example, there may be a type of education system that's more structured than one, Or there may be one that allows for creativity, or there may be one that is best for visual learners, and there may be one that is best for, students who like to go at their own pace, who are very motivated. And I think that once we start to realize that there are different types of education systems that could fulfill any student's needs, we can start to realize that, their traditional education system is not one size fits all, and that once we can immerse students into an education system that best fits their learning difference or their learning disability or their ability, that we can start to not so much focus on accommodating any student, but that we can focus on allowing all students to have maximum learning once they start to realize, that there are different types of learning styles and learning preferences, and that can allow for best learning input and maximum learning. And I think that's really important to realize.